Okay, I guess we're live. So I just wanted to show you guys I'm out here in the neighborhood posting flyers of the last place I saw Bailey. My heart's beating so fast. I try not to get emotional. Well, I think it's been 7 months and I haven't seen my daughter. I don't know where she is.
Look, they can't search it all. We just need your help. But the monster who did this away forever.
You have probably seen the posters around Bakersfield with the name Bakersfield 3. 3 friends who either went missing or were murdered within a month of each other last spring.
I missed my boo!
My heart, my gut just saying like, oh my God, this is connected.
Just because you're in a very nice home, in a very nice neighborhood, that does not protect you or your children.
For most of their lives, the 3 seemed to flourish. So how did they end up in such grave danger?
He was afraid. He was always saying like, Mom, they could be following us right now. And no one heard from him after that.
Well, we have no evidence she's alive or dead. I hope she's not trapped up in the river.
I knew something felt wrong.
Just so many people had so many different opinions. Well, what is it? What is the reality of the situation? Until they have answers, 3 local mothers aren't giving up.
He climbed out at the passenger side and he collapsed in the road and died.
It's okay. Take a deep breath.
We know the mothers have been, vocal about trying to get these cases solved. And, there are no winners in this.
They're watching me over here. We know there's at least one killer walking the street. We're gonna shut this shit down.
This is a complicated story with a lot of players in it, and it's a bizarre one. Just right when you think we're a sleepy little bird, you get these kind of things. Lots of people involved, multiple accounts of torture and kidnapping and murder. District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer, thank you for joining the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
I feel like we're talking about an episode of Breaking Bad. I mean, it all happened in Laurel Glen.
Right, in our community. Yeah.
How many times have you and I driven down Half Moon Drive? I mean, it's just bizarre to me.
You can make an argument that Bakersfield being a terrible place. And you can make a good argument for Bakersfield being a very nice place. It's got 2 personalities in a way. And there's a lot of people that trickle back and forth between those 2 worlds.
This is not happening in the bad part of town, under the cover of night. These are people doing this stuff in their garages around the corner from people who are just normal families. We want the truth. We've always wanted the truth, no matter how painful. We're just a 2-parent family, been married over 40 years now. We had 2 sons. Both of our boys were raised in Bakersfield. They were only 20 months apart, so they were very much like twins. Luke very much looks up to his brother, still does. Micah sometimes was bossy, was very talkative. He loved his friends, he loved get-togethers. He loved his family, above all. I just look back with such fond memories of bringing the kids up and their school systems, and everything was wonderful. So we felt like, as parents, that we were doing the right thing. And Micah was a stockbroker. He was very talented and bright.
You never worried about Micah. I always thought he'll be all right. Micah will be all right. He's resourceful, he's independent. I always thought he'd be fine.
Micah was 34 years old when he went missing. And about 3 months before, Lance and I had moved up to Kern River Valley, which is about 40 miles from Bakersfield, up in the mountain. So we lived away from him, but we still talked to him most every day. So it was odd when he didn't call us. That year, Easter was it April 1st? I think it was April 1st. And a holiday never went by without Micah calling. And a few days before, we had gotten a call from one of his friends asking if he was staying with us because they couldn't find him. Of course, I started trying to call him and began just getting voicemail, over and over. And Micah was never without his phone. He was never without his phone or a friend or something. I said, we have got to get some help. We've got to file a report or something. So we drove down to Bakersfield, went in to try and file a missing persons report, and was told it'd really be better if we spent some time looking ourselves.
Which we did.
Why don't you do that first and then come back?
Check hospitals.
Yeah, check the hospitals, make sure you call all of his friends. Which, of course, we had already been doing that part. That made me really angry. Like, as if we didn't know we were supposed to be looking for him. That's why we showed up, was to tell him we couldn't find him.
Yeah.
Lance and I went to Micah's apartment, and the landlord let us in. And he had to push the door kind of firmly because he had piles of mail in the floor. He had left food on his dresser, and he had like an old school lava lamp. And those things get really hot. And he had left that on. So Lance started looking through his dresser. His clothes were all still there. It just did not look like he had needed to leave town.
It's not illegal for an adult to go missing. And Micah was an adult, so they had nothing to really latch onto. There's really nothing they could do, but please at least take this information down and pretend like you're going to do something.
Right.
And we'll go away feeling better, thinking that you might.
It was just weeks and weeks of people having the same experience I am. Have you seen Micah? Where's he at? How's he doing? Have you found him?
And any lead at that very time, that particular time is you're waiting for that needle to drop.
Or like when you called me and said, hey, somebody thinks they saw him at a Wendy's or by my house, remember that?
Walmart and a Wendy's, and there was a hotel that somebody saw him at. Because we would always go wherever.
Yeah. I'm thinking.
And there was a guy there that looked just like Micah when Micah was in high school. So somebody did see somebody that looked like him.
Oh, we had so many phone calls because he knew everybody.
Did you know how many people knew your son and actually really loved your son and knew him? I one time ran into him at a Hawklito's Grill. I couldn't make it 20 steps without him running into somebody. Every single, it seemed like the whole entire place knew who he was.
Absolutely.
Did they have a karaoke machine?
The karaoke machine wasn't out that night, but I want to tell you, it was every single person went out of their way to say hi to him and address him.
He couldn't sing at all, but he would sing. Micah's motto is, I only go where I'm the show.
From the time he was little, always commanded the room.
Yeah, it's definitely a true statement. Yep.
He never got embarrassed.
Oh, he didn't care. That was the best part about him, though.
Yeah.
He didn't care who was watching.
I don't know how you could be so obnoxious on one hand and have so many friends on the other hand. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Everyone was looking for Micah. Everyone who knew him was looking for him. I had opened up my Facebook page and we just started blasting social media and nobody could find him. No one was getting any answer. And then all of a sudden one day, someone called me out of the blue. I've never met her, didn't know her. She said, "This is Di Byrne." And she said, "My son is James Cole's dad." And she said, "James was killed." And he knew Micah. I was like, oh my God.
When gunshots rang out in this quiet Southwest neighborhood, just about everyone was stunned. When I came here to the scene the next day, neighbors told me that a drive-by shooting in this area was so bizarre that most assumed that the killer and the victim both weren't from around here. Now, the shooter is still unknown, but the victim, James Kolstad, was attacked while leaving this cul-de-sac.
I have a big family. I have 7 children. I was born in Bakersfield, but off and on during my life, I've lived in different places and just ended up back here.
Bakersfield is a big, really big, small town. I mean, it's spread out. I mean, it takes 30 minutes to drive from one side of town to the other. I don't know, it's a good place to raise a family. It's a good community. Just the air quality sucks, and it's really, really hot. It's like over 100 degrees in June, July, August. A lot of people hate it, but it's a love-hate thing.
Oh my God.
Video.
For James, Bakersfield was not his favorite place to live. He had moved to San Diego. He actually lived in a high-rise penthouse downtown San Diego. He loved the beach. He loved surfing. He loved being a dad. James was an entrepreneur. He loved entertaining. He loved cooking. He would give the shirt off his back to you. He was the best friend that you could ever have.
Right out of high school, started working in the oil fields. Bakersfield years ago was a very big oil and gas, very big farming town. James had a job as a pipeline welder, significant pay. They made the big bucks. Within a year, I started welding side by side with him, and we did for many years, as well as another brother, as well as Ryan. We all welded together all across the United States for a long time.
He was my older brother, so he would help himself to my stuff, and unapologetic. But he also looked after me. Yeah, I haven't talked about him for a while, but yeah, he always looked after me. But he would never fight my fights. If we gonna fight somebody, he would show up and be like, all right, get it started and make sure nobody jumps in. But we took care of business, to say the least. He wanted to work smart, not hard. He would work hard if he had to, but he was always up to do something fun.
James had moved back in with me the summer before he was killed. Looking back, he was having a difficult time working. I know that now, I did not know that then.
Getting back to San Diego was like his main priority. It's just a whole different vibe. You know, the beach vibe is awesome. I think that's what he fell in love with.
James and I had had a conversation, and he goes, "Mom, I have something that I'm working on. You're gonna love it." And so that evening, about 10 p.m., he came out of the bedroom and was going outside, and I go, "Where are you going?" He goes, "Oh, I'm going to the store. I'm gonna buy some cigarettes and a bottle of whiskey." And I started laughing because James didn't drink whiskey. And he kind of poked his head back at me and he goes, "Mom, I'm just going out to smoke." You know, and I said, "Well, son, I love you. I'm gonna go to bed now." And about 1:15, I receive a call, and it woke me up, and it's my son, Ryan. And he goes, "Mom, James has been shot." So I immediately called his brother, Stephen, and I said, "Stephen, your brother James has been shot. We need to get there right away."
Fortunately, we live in the same gated neighborhood, so I turned the corner, went down a couple of streets, picked her up. We rushed over to the crime scene.
When we got there, I jumped out of the car, but it was heavily guarded tape by the police department, and they would not let me through, and I turned into a screaming lunatic. I lost it, and my son Stephen had to bear hug me to keep me from going crazy. I was just screaming, you know, "I need to get through, I need to see James, I need to get to James, I need my son." And it was horrible. And then finally, the police officer told us that he had expired.
Ryan was at the scene of the crime when all this happened. You may not know this, but Ryan had him in his arms. So, tough.
Ryan said James was just pulling out as Ryan was pulling in down the street. They passed each other. All of a sudden, he heard gunshots. And Ryan said he looked in his rearview mirror and he saw headlights coming. He thought it was James, but it was the silver sedan. The sedan made a right-hand turn and Ryan flipped around and went back to the neighborhood. He sees people trying to help James. He's laying in the middle of the road.
It's something that'll never go away. I mean, people say, you know, like, time it just gets easier to deal with, but you think about it, and all the feelings come up fresh, just like it happened yesterday.
I think it was 3 or 4 days of just nonstop not being able to sleep, crying. Real difficult time in my life. But I knew something felt wrong. James was shot on the 8th of April, and the following week, I just decided to go in research mode. I was thumbing through his Facebook friends, Ryan's Facebook friends, and I started trying to put people together that we could go talk to. And then I happened to go into a Facebook that was an ex-girlfriend of Ryan, and she was talking about Micah being missing. I knew that my son James and Micah had been hanging out together because James told me Micah was an executive at Wells Fargo Bank. He and Micah met when James banked there. And James had helped him move, and they were hanging out. So I was able to get Micah's mom's phone number.
When I first heard from Di, I was just very intrigued that this was a person who had information about Micah that I didn't know. I didn't know James by name. He wasn't kind of one of the people that Micah had talked about.
And I said our boys had been hanging out together. And then we just started talking, and we were on the phone for several hours together. I just had the strongest feeling, and I had made an appointment with James's detective, Sergeant Garrett, and I took Cheryl and Lance with me because I wanted him to know I believed there was a connection with Micah being missing and James's murder. I think he thought I was crazy, to be really honest.
When James Kolstad was murdered, I went out to the scene, we did a briefing, and then I assumed the investigation at that point. There was some subjects to be interviewed, so we started conducting interviews. It's still an open, active homicide case, so I can't get into the details of who I talked to and what they said. But we did talk to several witnesses that night as well as the following days. Cheryl reported Micah missing on April 4th, 2018. Any missing person case, you want to see the last people they talked to. We were able to justify getting search warrants for call detail records, phone records, bank account stuff, social media accounts. Some things just kind of weren't adding up. All of his activity stopped in March of 2018. People do erase social media accounts, but we couldn't find any activity on banking records, couldn't find any activity on cellular phones that were used by him. So obviously gave us concern. Later on, it was determined that they kind of knew of one another, but it's not like they hung out every weekend. They ran in kind of a similar social circle.
I think that's enough for him to say, there's not a lot of coincidences in this world.
Yeah.
And, things don't happen by accident. In his mind, it merited further investigation.
At that point, Micah's brother, Luke, had been going to Bakersfield every day for several days. Basically just trying to figure out who he was hanging with, what he had been doing, what some of his last movements were, and was able to get some information. He was told, if you want to know what happened to Micah, you need to talk to Bailey.
You need to find Bailey Perrin.
So I'm gonna go down here and hang one of Bailey's flyers up. I haven't done it in a while. I call it my flyer therapy. Gosh, I've hung thousands of them, so it's like I've said this little prayer I always say when before I leave the flyer. One more day to find Bailey, one more day not to go crazy. I have nowhere to look for Bailey, but I have everywhere to look for her. I'm a mother to Caitlin and Bailey. Bailey was born in '97. She was a sweet little baby. I would call her my baby bird because whenever she wanted to eat, she would, do like a baby bird with her mouth, So called her little bird.
Hey. Hey, you. Hi. Okay, just walk away.
She just loved animals.
He hates me.
Growing up.
So cute.
She always had a pet. When she was little, she's like, when I grow up, I want to be a grocery girl. And I'm like, oh, okay, you can be anything you want. And then as she got older, she was trying to go into the military and studied hard for the test, and she wanted to be an airline stewardess. So it just changed all the time.
Her graduation from high school.
Her smile.
Always.
Right,
One
I
of the
know. She's
prettiest
got the biggest
smiles.
smile in this
One of the most contagious laughs.
Yes.
She never showed any form of judgment. She was always there for you and just try to help you through whatever, you know, and that's where that positivity came from. She just loved to see you smile, and so she'd do anything she could to make you.
Maddie's been naughty.
I miss my boo.
Oh, she's
Oh
so
my
funny.
goodness.
We used to have this ritual where we would tell my dad that we wanted to get ready so we could have a photo shoot that night. We're gonna do full face makeup, we're gonna take lots of pictures. Dad's leave us alone. And then the second he'd go to bed, out that house we went. And we were getting picked up by one of our friends. We were climbing in the car with my brother and taking off to wherever, bonfires and football games afterwards. There'd be so many parties. Those were the best times.
They were.
Bailey got married to her boyfriend in Vegas, August 3rd of 16, so a year after she graduated high school. Didn't tell anybody, at least I didn't know, and then like a week or two later, I'm just like, did you guys get married when you were in Vegas? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Why did, instead of saying, oh, congratulations, I was like, why did you do that? Last I heard, you guys were breaking up. They had a very volatile relationship. You know, they were fighting a lot and very young. So, you know, your mama sense, you know, I could tell something. He wasn't the right one. She did eventually leave him, and she's back home with me for a while. You know, mothers and daughters at that age, both the girls thought I was like controlling. You know, why do you have to know where I'm at? Why are you texting me all the time? Well, so I know nothing's happened to you. And it's like, you know, we joke when we get together with my friends or family. It's like, how did our parents live not knowing where we were every second? Because, you know, we used to be able to run around on the streets, ride our bikes, come home when the sun went down. You know, parents didn't have the worries that they do today. But she would always call me, like every day, even if we had an argument. Bailey was just 20 years old. She was just evolving into adulthood, you know, and with that comes change because you're not the same person at 20 that you are at 25. The last day I saw her was April 23rd. Bailey was supposed to come have dinner and visit. At that point, Bailey had moved out of my house and moved in with a guy named Matt. And on the 23rd, she said, I can't come to dinner. So I was at Costco and I thought, okay, I'm gonna take some churros over. That way I can drop them off and I'll get to see her because she loved the Costco churros that were like this long. So I think I got like 5 of them. And she came outside and she was, you know, happy. And well, I don't know if she was happy, but she came outside and I'm like, get in the car, I'll talk to you. And she goes, I can't, I gotta go back in. And I gave him to her and said, I love you. And it was just like a little quick hug over the seat. After that, it was texting, I was calling, wasn't getting anything. Then everything stopped. Her social media, her phone. I went over to Matt's house. When I knocked on the door, his oldest son answered, and he said, Bailey's not here right now. I go, where did she go? And he said she left. And I go, well, who did she leave with? Because you didn't have a car. He said, I don't know.
She was very active on social media. She would not even go an hour without checking posts or wanting to post something, especially on Snapchat. She was very big on Snapchat. And so we got more worried after that. So I knew that she would have called. There would have been at some point something, some form of message, some form of login to any social media platform that she owned.
I knew I had to file a missing person report because I knew something very bad had happened to her. And then I made the flyers. I drove all over Kern County, putting up flyers. I knew it was over 5,000. People say closer to 10. Everywhere I went, I had a flyer.
We just saw a picture of the poster online. Lance was just scrolling through Facebook.
And it said, Bailey Parent is missing. I've heard that name, Bailey Parent. So I messaged Jane, and you don't know me, but my son is missing too.
I realized I'm not the only mom this is happening to. That's when I knew something was very, very wrong.
This is 17 News.
Since her disappearance, Bailey has missed some big events, including her 21st birthday. From search and rescue to the Air Division and numerous detectives, the search for Bailey is extensive.
Bailey Despot isn't the type of person to simply disappear. And with the amount of time that's gone by, detectives say this case is suspicious. What's more, there's a chance it could be connected to another Kern County missing persons case.
The first time Jane and I met, I told her that some of Micah's friends had mentioned that Bailey might be the person to talk to find out what had happened to him.
I didn't know anything about Micah. And they're telling me all this, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just sitting there and overwhelmed. And it's like, do I trust these people? Because at the time, I didn't trust anybody.
I learned about Bailey going missing through Cheryl and Lance. And then the three of us moms talked on the phone.
At that point, we couldn't say, this is how they each knew each other. We just knew that they had to be connected.
Initially, I thought it was a case that we've seen a million times before, where, a beautiful young woman has gone missing. She just vanished, in the night. And pretty immediately after I got in contact with Jane, she asked me if I knew who Michael Holzenbake was. And she said, well, he's also missing. Few details have been released, but detectives do say his disappearance is suspicious.
100% out of character for Micah. This is not a choice that he's made.
And then Cheryl brings up James Kolsted's case, and it was almost overwhelming to have all three of these cases seemingly connected right off the bat. I mean, it was incredibly compelling. I'd never heard of anything like this. I haven't since.
Early on, we met Olivia LaVoice, and she stayed with the stories, wanted to be of help.
I feel like I still don't even really understand how surreal your lives are. You know, I think I understand more than
the average
person, but no one can really know it. I'll never forget the first time you said to me, well, you said on camera, you know, you just wanted, if someone would just tell you where he was, that you would literally dig him up with your bare hands.
I would go get him.
Jane and Cheryl say they need to know what happened, even if it means learning their children are buried in shallow graves.
I would drive straight from here. I would go there and I would dig him up with my own hand.
I would go get him with my bare. I would.
And I didn't know at that point yet. It was so early on. I didn't know that you were literally doing that.
That first summer, I almost had a heart. I think it was 110 degrees, and I'm out in
110 degrees
Maricopa trying to climb up on a water tower to see if Mike is down inside.
Yeah, we did that too. We came across the same water tower. We've all gone out and we've looked. I mean, we've searched with our own hands and feet. We've walked and we've dug and we've looked ourselves.
When your kid is missing, it doesn't come with a handbook on what to do. So we just kind of came together and did our own plan and thought about how could we do this.
My ex-husband, Will, had named the kids the Bakersfield Three. Will created 2 Facebook pages, one just for the Bakersfield Three, and then another discussion group. People started talking. They wanted to be involved.
These aren't just 3 grieving mothers. These are mothers that are in the middle of a full-blown investigation.
We learned how to do conference calls, and we would compare notes and names. And we would do that for hours.
And so immediately we were all, okay, do you know this person? Do you know this person? Do you know this person? In a place like Bakersfield, if you've got 20 people and another person knows that same 20 people, then, you know, they're all friends.
I remember at some point I had a meeting with all 3 respective mothers. That's when the Bakersfield Three name started to kind of coin itself. I would try to share some information, but obviously we have to safeguard the investigation. So it was always kind of a love-hate relationship, you know, sometimes when we had these meetings, because they want all the details. And they know I'm withholding information, and it's intentional, nothing against them, but I have to protect the case. And I'd constantly remind them that, you know, we're doing everything we can on these cases, and that we're looking into it. All 3 respective mothers were out there talking to people, but sometimes it can be problematic because they're getting these stories 3rd, 4th, 5th hand from people, and they may not really have any direct nexus to the investigation. At the same time, I'd tell them, you never know. You never know when you go down that rabbit hole what you might find.
I've lived here my whole life. I have a vested interest in what happens here as a police officer because my family also lives here. It's a good community. There's a lot of good people here. It's a conservative area. There's 400,000 residents, but it still has a small town feel. And there's a lot of people still know of one another. And we got a lot of history here. We got Buck Owens Crystal Palace here. Buck Owens was one of the pioneers of country music. You know, he used to sing every Friday, Saturday night there until he died. So this is the area that we call the Bluffs. A little scenic area because you can see all the way out in the foothills, all the oil equipment. That's Bakersfield, that's Kern County. Agricultural and oil. Down below, the Kern River flows. We're one of the few areas that have a river that has a death toll. It's called the Killer Kern, the Kern River. There's a lot of people, primarily from LA and whatnot, come down to hang out during the summertime. and the water looks tempting because it's hot outside, and they go in, and unfortunately they drown. It's very swift moving currents. I think there are changes in most cities across the U.S. Same as any other community. There's property crime, there's violent crime, there's drug nexus to a lot of these crimes. We have all the same drug issues that most other cities have. There's a lot of methamphetamine use here. There's cocaine here, there's heroin, marijuana, you name it. A huge epidemic of opioid use.
Just like every town, there's good areas and bad areas. Things do happen on both sides. Crime knows no boundaries.
If current trends continue, we are on track once again to have the deadliest year on record here in Kern County. And tonight, another dubious distinction.
Jim, the California Department of Justice just released crime statistics for last year. Those stats show our county has the highest murder rate in the state. The state homicide rate is 4.6 killings per 100,000 people. Kern County's rate is 2.5 times higher, 11.3 per 100,000.
We sit at a really unique place in the state. I don't know how much that has to do with the crime level, but we are, for a couple of years now, we've had the highest homicide rate of all of California's counties. And that just hurts my heart. Always been some underground crime going on with different unsavory organizations, because we are right at the crossroads of two really major interstates. So even human trafficking is really a problem here because of our location on the freeway system.
I had heard Bailey had been sex trafficked. She just met the wrong people who took advantage. Because Bailey was a little naive still at that time. Somebody said they're gonna do something for you, she believed it.
I had already spent many hours talking to primarily young women who would call me because they got my phone number from someone else to tell me that they had been threatened. And please, oh my God, don't give my name to the police because my kids have been threatened. It just started feeling like, my God, I don't know who, but somebody has got a hold on Rosedale, which is the area of town, area of the city where we lived and went to school. Jane lived there. Di was very close by. They were by the high school, a little farther south.
We were hearing the Mexican cartel, then we're hearing the Hells Angels. And we can't be both. Is it even one of them?
Getting information out of a lot of the people that I came into contact was very difficult. They were very reluctant. A lot of them have what is the saying, snitches get stitches. A lot of them were very fearful for their lives. I knew there was someone out on the street and they needed to be behind bars.
I had sources in law enforcement who would tell me, oh, that's all ridiculous. And I had other sources telling me, be careful. We really do think there are some very dangerous players.
And then our county started finding body parts